Hello, and welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. This is going to be a quick overview of what I got at the DC Pen Show and also some of the great experiences that I had. I'll probably go into depth a little bit more over the next coming weeks into some of the great finds and great people I met, interesting discussions. I thoroughly enjoyed the show on many levels. I had a bucket list, and everything on the bucket list I was able to check off. So that to me is successful. And there were so many other things that I just enjoyed from interacting with many people, some old friends, a lot of new friends. So that made it just a great time. Other than Beltway traffic, I would say it was a phenomenal, successful event. I like the hotel. I like the layout. There are two pretty good-sized rooms. One's the main ballroom, where I think it's probably where most of the higher-end people are, and most of the regulars are. And then there's the outer room where there's a couple new people. That's where Karis Customs was. So that was interesting how it was laid out. So let's go into a little bit more of a detail. So one of the, to me, great things about going to a pen show is you find items you never knew existed, never knew you needed, until you see them sitting on the table. And these just blew me away. This is the gentleman who does them, Brad Shute, glassmaker. So, you know, fountain pen people are into a lot of things. A lot of them are into knives. A lot of them are into watches. I have to say, I love glass making. These are just beautiful, great concept. You know, like I say, you don't know you need them until you see them, and then you know, how could I live without them? These would look good on any desk. It's a great place to put your favorite pen, because you're going to know where it is. And the pen fits well. Big pens fit well. So that's just really nice. I mean, I'm impressed. I'm just impressed. It's just beautiful. It's great to hold in your hand. It has a nice weight to it. And the way he handles colors and swirls and that little bit of reflectivity, it's like a powdered metal that he puts on top. I heard titanium, but I could have been mistaken. The darker one here has definitely a lot more sheen to it. But like we enjoy in a lot of the acrylics, with the swirls and how as the light changes, it changes the way that it looks. And it just, to me, this is a great accompaniment to any type of writing instrument that you like a nice place to put it, and you're certainly not going to forget where you put it. I got a combination of LED light and sunlight, so hopefully it's really showing off the incredible sheen and color schemes and how the colors change as the light hits it at a different angle, and some of the subtleties. This one I got because of the subtleties. You know, sometimes you just want something that's has a little nuance to it, but not really over the top. And this is certainly something that would look good, I think, in any decor. So one of the things that's always good to pick up at a pen show are tools, especially those that like working and restoring and repairing fountain pens. So I needed another pair of pliers with kind of a soft or a grip that's not going to mar, scratch, or dent. So I picked these up. I thought they look really good, and all the tools that Dale does at pentooling.com are really, really high quality tools. He knows his stuff. He's been doing it for a while. And in his restoration days, which are in the past, he developed a lot of his own tools and he's willing to share it. I needed another sack spreader because the one I'm using now is out of a vintage Parker repair kit set. So I want to put that one back into the kit. So I picked up this one. And this is something I really didn't know it existed, didn't know I needed it, but now that I have it. This is a nice rubber gripping tool designed to remove the sections from Parker 51s. You know, that nice conical section, which is not the easiest thing to grip. So you slide that on there, it gives you a little bit of torque advantage with that larger diameter. And the way it's designed, it really grips, and of course it's not going to leave any marks or do any damage to the actual nib section. So those are my tools, and if anybody enjoys those, check out this website. If you're ever at a pen show, look up Dale. He's great to talk to. He just is an excellent resource for the community, and I'm glad every time I get together with him and we find something that I didn't know I needed, and it's great to help me with my restoration of pens. So to me, you can't go to the pen show without getting some ink. It's nice to be able to see the swatches that the vendors bring, so you can actually figure out what color you want. There's a nice ink table to play around with the different colors and with pens. So this is an ink that they gave out at the beginning of the opening of the show on Saturday, and I just happened to be one of the first 200. I got a bag and a bottle. Haven't inked anything up with it, but I'm certain with Monteverde it's going to be a great blue ink. So Ink Journal had this ink, nice label. So this is kind of a show ink for them. I think it should be interesting. I actually have inked up a pen with it in one of my new pens, so we'll see that in action. This is another show special from Federalist Pens. They have a great relationship with Robert Oster, so I'm looking forward to using that. And I could always use something in the ocean category. I know Robert Oster does a great variety of it, and this looks kind of dark here, but that's fine. It's kind of in the blue-green teal family. So Organic Studios is back. I played around with some of their sheening inks with samples, but I saw this on the table and I wanted to try it. I've also inked up a pen with this and I fell in love with it. I love the ink. I think it's great. Sailor had a very nice table. You could play with all the pens, and this is one of the 4 new inks that they're releasing this year. Nice that it's a dye ink, not pigmented. It's kind of in the purple family, but it's on the dark side, and I enjoyed it, and it's nice to be able to sample it while you're there. And you were writing with 1911 standards, not the large one. And the interesting thing was to me is the nibs were all HM nibs, but from my hand experience, each of those nibs had a little bit different characteristics to it, and one of them was actually on the soft side. So we had a little discussion about consistency, and I think Sailor is as consistent as any pen manufacturer. So last but not least are pen BBS inks. Venice is where I've gotten my other pen BBS inks from. So early in the show, I stopped by their great table, which has a phenomenal amount of interesting things on it. I actually helped them set up a little bit on Thursday night. So this ink I've seen before. I almost pulled the trigger on it, but the swatches I didn't think were interesting. But when I saw the swatches live, I thought it was great in the brown family. So we'll have to ink up a pen and see how that works. And how could I not get the ink? And this is that 277 ink, which I had a sample of, and I wanted a full bottle of it. It's a nice shimmery green ink, which I found to be very nice. All the pen BBS inks that I've used has been very good. I would have liked to got Mandarin Duck, but they didn't have a bottle of it. It seems to be kind of hard to find. So the other thing that's good for me at pen shows is it's not just finding some great pens or some unique pens or some one-of-a-kinds or just that grail pen that you've always been searching for, that now when you put it in your hand you realize that, whoa, you now know why it was a grail pen to you. So I don't have any rickshaw pen carrying devices, so I got this one from Ink Journal. It was a show special. I think the artwork is incredible. I really like it. So it holds 8 pens, which is probably more than enough, but for some of us it's not. And in here are the pens that I bought at the pen show. Not all of them, but most of them. So I just thought we'd show you that. And this is, again, one of the nice things about going to the pen show that I enjoy.
I add them there myself. So this has 9, I think 9. So I will separate that into 9 containers, pigment each one individually, and then the mold is 8, 9 inches high.
So here are the new pens that I picked up at the show, and I'm going to present them in chronological order. The first pen I got was this pen from Carolina Pen Company. It's the first matte finish acrylic pen that I own. Nice bag made by Jonathan's wife. So this has great nuances in it, and I had long discussions with Jonathan. I really enjoyed his insights into pens in general, pens that he makes, you know, the nature of the beast, the screw-off cap. Yeah, it's a few turns. And it just, you know, I think the section is great. I think the size is great. It feels wonderful in the hand. You can post it. It's light. It posts fine. It doesn't really change the balance too much. In fact, it kind of evens it out a little bit. I got it with a Bach broad nib, and then I took it to Joshua Lax to get it ground into a cursive italic, and it is absolutely a sweet writer. So the next focus I had was on Karis Customs. I've bought 2 of their pens already online, and I watched all the videos on the new Starliner series. I'm not into the rollerball series, so I didn't explore those. But I'm certain if that's your cup of tea, then that would be great for you to explore. I love this simplistic packaging. You know, there's this plastic tube that a lot of pen manufacturers sometimes use, but a lot of the people that make their own pens use them. So this is the Starliner in black. It's on the small side, but I would say it's probably average, and it would fit almost anybody's hand. You know, immediately when I pick up a Karis Customs pen, you know, you feel the weight, you feel the quality. The first thing I try to do is unscrew the cap, but obviously this pops off, and it pops off with a nice little pop. We just have your standard nib. I got a medium and broad between the 2 Starliners that I got. I mean, this feels nice. It fits okay in my hand, which is a medium large hand, but it's designed to also post well. Again, this is Karis Customs. I talked for a while with Bill on Sunday and really appreciated his insights. Again, one of the great things about being at a pen show is having that opportunity to talk to the people who created and designed their pens. So I'm going to go into depth on all these pens at a later video, but this is just, you can hear that click. This is just an overview. So I wanted one in the tumbled aluminum. I love the contrast between these machined grooves and that tumbled finish. This feels much different than the black anodized. This is a little bit smoother, maybe a little slippery to the finish, to the feel. This is definitely more of a matte feel. Again, that pop-off cap. What's nice about this design is you can hold it anywhere. I mean, there's hardly any transition. There's a nice little flare out at the bottom, which is great. I like that design. So I give them kudos. I like this. It's definitely done well. So then I asked what other new pens that they had. And then, when people come and ask for the new pen, this is what they were shown, which is the Vectrix. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. I love this pen. This pen is a Vertex, and I've mispronounced it a few times in the video. I'm extremely impressed with some of the main features that they've incorporated into this pen that I think make it unique in the field. Pop-off cap, and you can hear that's definitely a pop-off cap. And there's your section, which has an ink window in it. Yes, it is filled with ink, and it's filled with the Willow Green, the Organic Studios ink, and it just works great in this pen. I have a fine nib in here because I had a medium and broad in the other two, and this is a number 6 versus the number 5 that's in the Starliner. There's been some reviewers that have confused that. There's an O-ring in the cap, which allows it to post extremely securely and fits well in the hand. That grip section is just excellent. I've never seen this in a pen before. I'm not going to unscrew it because it is full of ink, but it's just the right size. It fits great. And like the Starliner, it can post very nicely. The only thing I find interesting, a little bit different, is that concave top to the cap. I generally prefer something that's on the convex side, but as part of the design features, and it does lend itself to the unique nature of this pen. Hear that click? And of course you get a nice little rickshaw bag with this one versus the plastic one, but this is obviously a little bit more money, but I'm just impressed with the unique quality of it. So this is a dark green with a yellow section for those that are interested in the color combinations. And Bill did mention that they are working on an ebonite version of the pen, but I'm happy with this acrylic version. So after spending some time with Jonathan Brooks at Carolina Pens, I noticed that Jim Hines was there. One of the challenges with the DC Pen Show is you don't get a guide to the vendors. You have to meander around, which I guess is part of the mystique and part of the interest of that type of show. But so I had a great conversation with Jim. We talked about Larry, and we talked about Texas, and we talked about pens. So I transitioned from a green to an orange as I went through the show. So this was his orange pen, and I love it. I mean, it's, again, like the Vectrix. I just love the design. It's an unscrew cap. And it takes about 2 turns. It'll also screw to post. And we have this minimalistic design where everything flows together. I mean, that's really nice. And again, this is just like a creamsicle type of color. But what really impressed me about the pen was this ebonite section. Jim's pens tend to be on the large size. He does make some small ones, and so does Jonathan, but they tend to be on the large size. I love that ebonite ring here as an accent. I mean, it's just beautiful. And a black Jovo nib. Whole discussion on that I had with him about nibs, and I had a lot of discussions with other people, but we'll go into more depth in another video on that. So this was supposedly the last pen I was going to buy, but never say never, to quote that show. So on Sunday, I came across this, and I've now transitioned from green to orange. So I have to admit that I'm not necessarily a Vanishing Point aficionado. I do have one in black and silver trim, which has not been a favorite of mine, but this matte black I think feels better in the hand. I got this one with a stub nib, and guess what? I also got a broad nib too. So to me, the stub nib is something that I'll use if I'm going to be writing something that I'm going to be careful with, like a letter. But if I'm going to use this to just jot notes, I'm going to use the broad nib. And that's a black nib, which is nice. Again, the whole concept I just really liked. And you have to understand, if you've been to pen shows, I'm certain you've talked to Crazy Alan. And I just enjoy it. I mean, he's a consummate pen seller. He always has a great collection. A lot of the Japanese models he has a lot of exclusive models. He has a lot of paper products he gave me. Included in this was a Rhodia pad of my choice within the range. But one of the other things that I was interested about is when I opened this up and took a look at the screw converter, there's like 5 little ball bearings in there, which is interesting. I haven't seen that before. So I'm going to be doing, again, like I said, a full review of this. I'll compare it to the Vanishing Point I have, which is probably close to 20 years old, that I was given as a Christmas gift those many years ago. So those are the new pens. We're going to finish up with my vintage. Before we go to vintage, I needed to do one more thing. When I bought my pens at Karis Pens, they mentioned they had a broad titanium, which I'd never seen about or heard about. I didn't get one when I bought my pens, which was probably remiss of me. I should have done that. So I went back Sunday, and they only had the number 5, so I got that, which will fit into the Starliners. I don't know whether I have any other number 5s that the Bach assembly will fit into. One of the interesting things, obviously, Bach and Jovo are the two main nib makers that are popular with American pen manufacturers. Jovo is more popular with, obviously, your Edison, your Franklin Christoph, and some other people, and then Bachs are used by other. I don't really have a preference one way or the other. I also enjoy Knox and Schmidt nibs from Germany, so I think all of them have advantages and disadvantages. I think in the retail business, it depends upon what volume you're buying, whether you want logos in them, and there's a whole story from Jim Hines on his nibs, which I'll go into when I go into depth on that pen. So one thing on my bucket list from the show was pens roll stops. So Jonathan Brooks at Carolina Pens had them. You get one with a pen. I encouraged him to let me have 2, which he did, which I really appreciate. And if you see, this is a green sparkle one, which goes well with this. And this is another matte green that works well. So I have a double and a single, which you will probably see more often in my reviews. So these are the 4 I would call vintage. Some of them I don't have an age on, so they might be borderline post-vintage or modern. So the first pen I picked up was this pen here, and I'd never seen material like this before. A nice clean design, nice gold rings there. It's Italian. So you got your roller ball clip here, which is common with a few of the Italian vintages. This unscrew cap, it's about 1 turn to unscrew it. Has an interesting 14 karat nib. And right away I'm struck with those long tines, that heart-shaped breather hole. And it's, as you can see, it's a soft pen. It's a button filler, so I'm going to have to see if that's okay. I'm probably going to still take it apart and clean it out and do all those types of things to it. Maybe this is a rolled sheet of celluloid, something that I talked to Jonathan about when I was with him. So that was my first acquisition, and it was from an interesting seller that had a lot of pens of this nature. And this was the second one I picked up. Again, we're in a green theme. 3 bands, interesting clip. You know, this is a more common design, and this was also a lot less expensive. I got a bundled price, which was nice. And an interesting big section here. It has just a generic Wilmas Extra Iridium number 8 nib. You know, so I'm going to clean it up. This was sold as unrestored, so it'll take my tender loving attention. Obviously, with the collection that I have, it's going to not be something I'm going to do in the next day or 2, but it'll certainly finish. Staying in the green theme, I found this pen on one of the seller's tables. Now, those of you that are familiar might recognize it as a Deco Band Wall Eversharp, and it's in very, very good condition. And the price was very attractive. So you might ask, why was the price attractive? Well, we'll see. As you open it up, you'll take a look at the nib, and it's not the original nib. This is a nib probably from a Skyline. You know, from the design, it just says Eversharp. I mean, it's 14K, it fits the feed. I'm gonna, again, this was sold unrestored, but right away I noticed that this came out very easily, so this is going to be a simple job to really clean this pen up and restore it and get it into writing order. And that nib may work fine. It's a little bit on the stiff side, but we'll see how it writes. And we'll see if I have a nib that might be more appropriate. But for the time being, for this price, I've always wanted a green deco band like this, so now I have one. So on Sunday, after I said I wasn't buying any more pens, I stopped in a gentleman, and I wish I had his name or his card or something, but he's been at every DC show I've ever been to, and he has a couple tables just covered with pens. He has bins full of parts of pens. I mean, he just has a ton of stuff. So I was channeling Wasky Squirrel at the time, and I saw this pen on the table, and I go, interesting. It's a black and gold pen, very simple design, and absolutely no markings whatsoever. So you take off the cap, and there's an interesting small section, small nib. It's a 14 karat nib. It's just a warranted nib, so it's a generic nib. Hold on. I had to check the nib with my eyes. It's 18 karat, which is a warranted 18 karat I've never seen before. Nice section. It has a little bit of bounce to it. Not as good as the Italian nib. But how does this fill? Interesting hole there in the barrel. The blind cap comes off. And we have this thing that slides up and down. And I don't think it's going to fill because you don't feel anything. This may have been some type of bulb filler at some time. I have no idea how this fills. So I'm going to get a hold of Jason, let him know I have this pen, and see if he's interested. If he wants to try his hand at restoration of a pretty much unknown pen. The best I could get, and we showed it to a couple people who are familiar with European pens, and they just said it's some generic French pen. But it has some really interesting, unique features to it. So in that case, it made it interesting. Always good to pick up some more pen trays. Great to see Go pens there. I got two in black. So we're going to wrap up the video. I don't know how long it's going to be, but it's probably long. Hopefully it's been interesting and you've stuck by it or watched it over time or just skipped to the end. So I'm closing with what I opened with is these phenomenal glass pen holders. And I know when I did the roll around video, there was certain angles in which one may have questioned the shape of these or thought they might resemble something, but that's for your own imagination and not for me to encourage. So I thoroughly enjoyed the show. I haven't been to a pen show for over a year and a half, and I really wanted to be motivated to go, and that's really what drives me in my exploration of the world of pens. Is I love writing with them. I love exploring all their aspects, and I love all the discussions that I had with like a ton of people at the show. And I feel very at ease walking up to anybody and starting a conversation, and that's really one of the joys of the show. And since all of us have kind of one thing in common, but you know, there's a lot of very intelligent, knowledgeable people at the show, and it's great to spend time with them. I also took a calligraphy course. I took a Copperplate writing course. It was something I knew I'm going to have to spend a lot of time studying and learning, and that was really one of the themes of the class. And the other thing is that you learn some of the techniques from Deborah. So now I'm not just trying to read out of a book and trying to figure it out on my own. I now have some ideas, and the biggest challenge I have is releasing the pen. I can flex fine, but releasing quickly right up to that level where it's just back to a fine line, that I have trouble with, and I don't know how good I'm ever going to be able to get at that. So one of the ways I think I can do that is to take the nib off the paper, but again, that's something that's going to require practice, and we're talking over weeks, many hours a day for many weeks, which many people have said that they've done. So hopefully you've enjoyed this little look at some of the things from the pen show, and I'll go into depth with a lot of these pens over the next couple weeks or months. So you can look forward to those if you're interested in seeing more in-depth reviews. So may you have many, many, many phenomenal, exceptional pen experiences. Hopefully someday you get to a show if you haven't been to a show already. If you don't have a local pen meetup group, maybe try to start one. There's a lot of activity on Facebook. Not that I'm engaged in that, but that's, you know, something that works for a lot of people. So this is the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Until next time, bye.